Howdy folks, Doc here with Last Best Tool, and today we're going to talk about Silky Saws. I've used lots of kind of backcountry saws, outdoor saws. I even started with things like this Stanley. These actually do work in the outdoors. They're just a little clunky, but let's take a look. Oh, the classic bow saw. A little limited, obviously. The further you cut, the less you can use the blade, but they're handy. They're inexpensive. I've gone with, here's a Nicholson Bow Saw, a little more useful as far as the shape. Heavy though, short stroke. Have to use a blade cover on this guy. And then I've got into some of the folding saws and some of the like here's a still. This is a still. Kind of a fixed blade with a sheath. Excellent saw. Here's a folding still. Here's a SanDisk, or Sandvik, excuse me, SanDisk is a computer company. Push that to release it. This is the famous Laplander. Pretty good, thin, kind of fine tooth. It's a good saw. Of course, the famous folding saws. These are the Sven Saws that turn them into kind of these triangular shaped sort of bow saws. They're pretty handy. They fold up nicely, low profile. Takes a second to set them up. I thought this was pretty cute. Oops, dropped it. This is a little Coghlan folding saw. Look at how small that guy is. I actually use these with some very small solo stove wood-burning stoves that I have for camping. But anyway, let's talk about these Silky Saws. These are really the big ones that I want to talk about. They're excellent saws. If you don't know about Silky, there's a lot more besides just a dumb name. Silky makes, I think, some of the best affordable saws, folding saws, arborist saws in the world. And the Silky Saw brand has been around for about 100 years. It's a Japanese saw brand. And I want to show you a couple of the features of these guys. Some of them do come in cases. These are designed, you can wear them on your belt, like for an arborist. Pop them open, slide out the saw, and go to town. Most of the saws you can get with a rubber handle, just like this. And this particular type of saw has two locking points. One here, pretty much straight, and then you can also tilt it a little bit for additional cutting, an additional cutting angle. The blade is completely housed within this particular steel coated, this rubber coated steel handle. And that protects it, whereas some other saw blades you might have to have, like the Nicholson, to cover. And of course these can just drop right back down, into their carrying case, if there is such a thing. They come in different sizes, and the sizes are measured in terms of the blade length. So like this one says here, it's a 130, that's 130 millimeters. As you go up, this is a 170. Keep going up. This is a 240 right here. And then this is the largest one of their small folding saws. And this is what they call the Silky Big Boy. And this particular one, let's see, is there a size on this guy? I don't know. I'm guessing if this is a 240, this might be a 310. Now, this particular one, you're talking about a fairly large saw blade. Look at the size of that thing. Here's my hand. So it's huge. It's not very bad in weight, though, and you've got the two choices, so you can get a different angle on the blade. Wonderful design. I have not had any trouble with these. They're primarily a pull stroke, like a lot of the other small folding saws. Whereas if you look at the angle of the teeth, they're designed for pulling. If you try to push, you can actually start to bend this blade. And Silky, if you notice, the blade starts out thicker and gets thinner. That's deliberate for allowing a much better cut, because it's almost paper thin out here. So when you're backstroking on the saw, pulling this through, you're moving from a thicker to a thinner, so there's much less chance that it will bind or pinch. Silky has funny names. I mean, Silky's a funny name. There's Big Boy. There's Gom Boy. Let's see. Here's Pocket Boy right there. Another Pocket Boy. So they've got strange names, so if you're unfamiliar, you might pass them by thinking that Silky is not, you know, a reputable brand. It sounds like a stupid name. Silky Saws, Big Boy Saw. No, these are the best in the world of the, you know, traditional manufacturing affordable saws. You can get super fancy custom-made arborist saws for a lot more, but you're not going to see them on this channel. Now, one of the things is the color of the handle has to do with the particular blade configuration. This is a coarse blade. Orange is coarse, and around here I've usually got softer pine materials. So these just, this tooth design just eats through it, no problem. If you're interested in harder woods, you might go to the yellow handles or blue handles. It's important to proportion the thickness of the blade. I think this is the large. There's also an extra large. Versus medium versus fine, designed to the type of wood you're cutting. You know, and I'm doing pretty crude firewood cutting, so this is great. Now, the other thing you'll notice, it's a pretty complex design, and Silky makes this for both cutting and also for dumping material, because if you're cutting anything wet, or just doing a lot of cutting, you can see that there's wood stuck in here. If the tooth design wasn't as good as it is, this would clog up and you'd have to somehow clean it out before you could continue. So Silky has really worked hard to make a tooth configuration that both cuts extremely well and cleans itself as best as possible as you're cutting. Silky also makes a couple of different styles. This is a curved blade. This is a straight blade. And one of the differences when you're cutting between a curved and a straight blade is if you're working with the branch, the workpiece, whatever, in the center, you know, as you're kind of moving this back and forth, what this will do is maintain better contact around the branch, whereas the flat blades, like this one here, just going back and forth, can pop out, move around, become a little bit less precise. So the curved blades are great. The problem is they're harder to get into places because you need a greater vertical displacement versus just the simple horizontal displacement of the straight blades. This one, you know, has a lot more knife movement, you know, back and forth, cutting movement. If there's room for that, this is more efficient and it stays in place. If there's not room or you're not sure, then the straight blades actually work really well. And of course, this one also has the adjustability to give you a different angle for cutting. I really like this one. This one's using a little bit different handle design than some of the others. This is right now my current favorite Silky Saw. What I did is I also put a lanyard on it. You'll notice that it's got the kind of the ladder or the locking mechanism here. So what this is designed for is to put your hand here and then just cinch that up. That's how this thing works. So if I drop it or I'm working up higher in a tree or something, I can let go of the saw, or if it gets pulled out of my hand somehow, I retain it so it doesn't either drop down and get damaged or hit somebody, or I can, you know, keep working if I'm solo. But anyway, the Silky Saw brand are incredible saws. And if you're thinking about it, you know, this might be like the number 2. Let me pull this guy out. You know, the Laplander, a lot of people swear by these. Personally, the Silky Saws, by far, I think are the best. So if you're interested in a good folding saw, definitely consider the Silky Saws. And with that, Doc out.